Do you want to shock your enemies with lightning? Do you want to leave them in awe during social encounters? Or do you just want to wield a really big gun? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this is the Outer Worlds 2 build for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy your time in Min-Maxer's paradise. For background, pick what you like. I personally went with Renegade. It didn't give me any huge advantages, but I did get some fun dialogue options. Moving on to traits, I'd highly recommend Lucky, as it gives you plus 5% crit chance, on top of letting you do things you might otherwise be unable to do. Now, it didn't go with my character concept for this playthrough, but it would be optimal to pick up the Dumb trait so you can pick up Brilliant. Dumb makes you lock yourself out of 5 skills of your choice. You can just pick any 5 we don't put points in the next chapter of this video. But Brilliant lets you specialize in 1 additional skill, netting you 2 more skill points. Our 3 main skills for this build are Guns, Science, and Speech. At character creation, specialize in Guns and Speech, or all 3 if you went with the Dumb Brilliant combo I mentioned earlier. You'll want to level up all 3 of these skills evenly until you max them all out at 20. For Guns, each point you spend gives you plus 10% range damage and plus 1% armor penetration, to a max of plus 200% and plus 20% respectively. Speech gives you a plus 5% damage to humans per point for a total of plus 100%, and I found humans to be the most common enemy type in the game. Speech also lets you select otherwise unavailable dialogue options, including ones that let you talk your way out of entire boss battles. Because of that, I'd argue this is one of the most powerful skills in the game. And since we'll be stacking electrocuted on our enemies, we'll want Science, which gives us 10% more stacks of non-physical damage type side effects per skill point for a total bonus of 200%. This will let us control the battlefield a lot more effectively. Science also increases our max gadget energy by 7 per point for a total bonus of 140. And this is great for us as there's 1 gadget in particular that we'll use all the time. And after you've maxed out those skills, just put the remaining 2 or 4 skill points into Lockpick. It of course lets us open locks, but the main reason we want it is to give us a little bonus to evasion chance, increasing the likelihood we ignore ranged attacks entirely. A plus 2 or 4% evasion ain't much, but we'll have other ways of increasing our survivability, which we'll go over later in this video. Now, because we didn't invest much into lockpick or anything into engineering, there will be a lot of doors and containers we just can't open. But trust me, when you see the damage this build does later in this vid, you'll see that more than makes up for this inconvenience. If you've been enjoying this video so far, please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out a lot, so I can give you more of these build guides. Thanks. Now back to the video. For perks, I'd recommend the 15 you see here. Just ignore the order you see them in, and pick them in the order in which I go over them in this video. Space Ranger is an easy first pick. First of all, it gives us some funny Saturday Serial style dialogue choices, but more importantly, it gives us plus 2.5% damage per speech skill, for a total of plus 50% by the end game. Trophy Hunter is next. It increases our crit chance by 5% or 15% against strong enemies, which are the ones you'll see with silver sections on their health bars, helping us make quick work of boss fights. Electrotherapist improves the rate at which we apply electrocuted stacks by 20%. We apply electrocuted by filling up the meter we see when we deal shock damage. And when it's full, we paralyze our foe, dealing a lot of damage and shutting them down for a short time. And this perk helps us do this faster. Moreover, weak automechs, i.e. the ones without that silver bar I mentioned earlier, become scrambled instead of paralyzed, meaning they fight for us for a short time while still taking damage. You can also do this to strong automechs once you've depleted their silver health bar. Rapid Recharge is up next. It bumps our gadget energy recharge rate by 500% for 5 seconds after we drop below 10% energy, subject to a 30-second cooldown. 1 gadget in particular will help keep us alive, so this perk is an absolute must. Contingency Screen improves that aforementioned gadget, the Gas Energy Deflection Apparatus, which I'll call a shield for the sake of brevity. This lifesaver soaks damage for you, basically acting as a second health bar, similar to shields in Mass Effect. Contingency Screen automatically activates your shield when you drop below 25% health without costing you any energy, again subject to a 30-second cooldown. You can get this gadget by doing a quest called An Aegis Against the Miasma, which you can start by talking to Marshall Donaldson here at the Automech Repair Center on the first planet, Eden. and the easiest way to gain access to this area is by aiding Carr during the Saboteur of Paradise main quest. At level 12, we should definitely have our main weapon by now, so let's pick up Deep Drums. Our main weapon is a machine gun, so this will increase the magazine size by 50%, along with slowly reloading our weapon over time, making it so we almost never have to manually reload. Hail of Lead increases our machine gun's damage by 2% per shot, up to 100%. Just note, this damage goes away if we swap weapons or stop firing for a few seconds, so keep your finger on the trigger as much as possible. Intimidator lets you serve up some control alongside your damage. Dealing damage to weak humans or creatures, or strong ones that have been weakened, frightens those enemies for 8 seconds, making them flee or cower. Charlatan makes it easier to lie, and in combat, it reduces the chance of enemies targeting you. Grim Visage enhances Intimidator by frightening enemies close to the target when you neutralize them. And like Intimidator, this only works on humans and creatures, not automechs. Tall Tale Teller enhances Charlatan, making us even better liars and increasing our damage by 20% against enemies that are not targeting us. By level 24, we should have need for a third weapon slot, so let's pick up Commando, which gives us just that. And Shiny New Toy gives us a 6-second 20% damage buff after swapping weapons. This is a really easy damage bonus to get. Just swap from one of your backup weapons to your machine gun at the start of each combat. At level 28, let's get Lucky Strikes. You want to make sure your gun skill is maxed out by then, which should be easy enough. This perk increases your crit damage by 100%. And when you end an enemy with a crit, nearby hostiles take damage equal to 20% of their own health. And when you pair this with Marisol's Torpifying Blast ability, you can absolutely melt a boss's health bar. And finally, the Science Capstone in Radiator lets you double the damage you deal every 3 seconds, and that extra damage is dealt as in-ray damage. And as you can see, the results are insane, especially with our slower firing backup weapons, which we'll go over shortly. You can pick up as many or as few flaws as you want for this build, but the two I found incredibly useful and would highly recommend are Overprepared, which increases your mag size by 50%, but decreases your damage by 40% for 8 seconds when your mag runs empty. But thanks to Deep Drums, this should all but never happen with your main weapon. To get this, just constantly reload your weapons before they go empty. And Irradiated gives you a 5% chance to become camouflaged every time you take damage, yet again subject to a 30-second cooldown. When camouflaged, you're invisible to enemies, which is great for staying alive or setting up that extra damage from Tall Tale Teller. The downside of this flaw is that we take 5% of our max health as in-ray damage when this procs, but I find that to be negligible compared to the benefits this flaw grants. You'll get a chance to pick this flaw as you progress through the main quest line. Now, on to our gear. As for helmets, for the early to mid game, just run with the best helmet you can find that increases your crit chance and crit damage. These are pretty common drops, so they should be easy to get your hands on, and they make you better in combat offensively. I'd also throw the Kinetic Pulse Redistributor mod on there. When someone hits us in melee, we stun all nearby enemies for 8 seconds. You guessed it, subject to a 30-second cooldown. You can find this mod and the crafting recipe here, inside the in-ray range, on Dorado. And in the late game, we're going to swap out our helmet for Auntie's wig. Yeah. Let's go ahead and turn on Hide Helmet. This wig is the mother of all crit helmets, granting plus 5% crit chance and plus 100% crit damage. It also comes with the Hostile Takeover mod that charms humans you crit against for 20 seconds, this time subject to a 60-second cooldown. You also get the Cost Cut Materials mod, which grants you a 30% bonus to damage resistance that degrades every time you take damage and resets at the end of combat. You can get Auntie's wig during the final problem quest at the end of the Order of the Ascended faction questline. You can begin this quest by talking to Ruth, here inside Laplace Garden, on Cloister. For armor in the early game, let's get our hands on Escape Suit, which boosts evasion by 20% and combat sprint speed by 50%. It also comes with the Escape Protocol mod. This is not a stealth build, but the camouflage-like effect that we get when we drop below 30% health is just too good defensively to pass up. The 10-minute cooldown decreases based on our sneak skill, which we won't be investing in, so don't expect to reap the benefits of this mod more than once per combat. It also has the Cost Cut Materials mod, and I'd suggest adding the Crisis Defenses mod, which gives us 20% more damage resistance when we're below 50% health. You can obtain the Escape Suit by completing the lab that shouted incoherently and often quest, here at Eden's Bounty Agro Center on Paradise Island. And you can snag the Crisis Defenses mod here at the very end of the Saboteur of Paradise main quest. For the mid-game and beyond, let's rock Acquiescence. This armor raises evasion by 15%, damage resistance by 5%, and combat sprint speed by 25%. And it comes with the Adaptive Engineering mod. This raises your damage resistance by 10% when you're targeted by light damage, lowering your incoming damage. And it switches to raising your evasion by 30% when you're targeted by heavy damage, increasing your chances of avoiding being hit by ranged attacks entirely. And it even changes colors when it changes modes. It also has the Energy Woven Materials mod, which converts a small amount of incoming damage to energy, helping us keep our shields up. For the final mod slot, I slap on Crisis Defenses mod. And eventually, you can replace that with the Self-Repairing Armor mod, which you can get from Niles upon hitting level 20. This mod increases your armor rating by 5, getting it to a total of 12 and helping us tank low damage sources like shotguns, pistols, and SMGs. After taking moderate damage, this bonus does go away, but as the name implies, the armor will repair itself after 3 seconds of not taking damage, returning that bonus. You can purchase this armor from Sub Rosa Agent Cabor here on Dorado. Now, our main weapon will be the Chainspark Cannon. This is a fast-firing machine gun that deals shock damage with a base DPS of 680. It has the Chain Lightning mod, which lets the damage chain to other enemies, making it highly effective against crowds. If you couldn't tell, this is the weapon we've been building around, and when all is said and done, you'll have an incredibly high damage weapon with a max size of 200 that pretty much never needs to be reloaded. You can loot this weapon from the final boss of the Saboteur of Paradise main quest on Paradise Island. The first backup weapon we'll acquire is Emergency Stop. The base damage of this marksman rifle is 198 per shot, and it has the Big Red Button mod. This adds 5% to our crit chance with this weapon, and when we crit with it against automechs, we stun them. The cooldown for the stun effect is pretty long and scales down with our hack skill, which is 0, but hey, I found this gun easily procs the paralyzed condition we get from stacking electrocuted anyway. You'll receive this gun as a reward for completing the Saga of the Malfunctioning Automechanicals quest, which you can start by talking to Vigilant Hogarth here at Westport on Paradise Island. We won't get the third weapon we'll use until well into the mid-game, which is why the Commando perk was not a priority. But the first weapon we'll equip here is Feedback Cannon. Its base damage is 303 shock damage per hit, and you can charge it to deal even more damage. It also has the Sonic Hertz mod, which increases the damage you deal after you take damage. You can find this weapon after you receive the Rift Anomaly Modulator gadget during the main quest called An Instrument to Unfold Space and Time. To get Feedback Cannon, start at the Alexandra Station entrance fast travel point on Dorado, and follow the path you see here. And last but certainly not least, let's get Icebreaker. This does break the lightning theme of this build just a bit, but with the base DPS of 1058, who can pass it up? The frost damage it deals stacks Chilled, which slows targets' movements and attacks, and freezes them in place at max stacks. Your quick melee attacks with this gun deal 800% damage to frozen enemies, but not long after I got my hands on this weapon, I was one-shotting most enemies with this gun anyway. Now you can use this to replace either Feedback Cannon or Emergency Stop, as both fill a similar role as marksman rifles. But I traded out Feedback Cannon so that all my equipped weapons use different ammo types, making it less likely that I would run out of any one. You can find Icebreaker by opening a locker inside a Rift Anomaly, here in the Cloister Underlands, which you'll visit later in the game during the main quest called A Complication with the Computronic Cerebrum. Now let's see how this build performs, shall we? This may not be the tankiest build without investing in engineering and only a little into lockpick, so don't expect to Leroy Jenkins your way through every fight, but if you're playing smart, using cover, leveraging Niles and Tristan's abilities to draw aggro, and keeping your shields topped up, you should be able to survive even on very hard difficulty like I did. And offensively, this thing rips through crowds with Chainspark Cannon, takes out snipers and other long-range targets with either Emergency Stop or Feedback Cannon, and one-shots close-range targets with Icebreaker. So that, fellow Earth Directorate agents, was the Shock and Awe build for the Outer Worlds 2. Give it a try for yourself. And if you enjoyed what you saw here today, please like, comment, and subscribe to Min-Maxer's Paradise, the place for build guides for your favorite role-playing video games. Thanks for watching. Till next time.